Hey, welcome to another episode of the RocketMSP Podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host. Today I'm joined by Dale Walls. How's it going, Dale?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm feeling good. I'm I think I'm on a sugar high. So if I seem like I'm a little hyper or overly excited or anything like that, it's 100% sugar.
I'm gonna try to
Um,
catch up here with some caffeine myself.
yeah, see, and I don't even like coffee. So it is what's the sugar I had some like Olive Garden leftovers. So I'm talking about legit like the sugars from the Alfredo sauce and stuff.
Right on.
I just feel it coursing through my veins. Cheese
All
and
right.
sugar.
Well, let's put it to work. Let's put it to work.
Yes, I believe we should. So I appreciate you coming on here, man. I know that you have a company right now called Lions Guide. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Lions Guide. Yeah, I mean the quick rewind. I founded and retired as CEO out from Corsica Technologies, one of the top MSPs in the country, and afterwards look, I'm still young, full of piss and vinegar. I'm 40 years old. I got a lot left to do. I didn't want to just sit back and do nothing rather. And, just through various like conversations and so on, found out like just what I really enjoyed about just life as a CEO, I'll say, was just working with my direct reports, coaching them through challenges, problems. Obviously, a lot of them professional, in the operation, things that we're up against, and then sometimes it trickled over into personal. But I realized like in the latter years for sure, what really got me out of bed every day was just looking forward to my team meetings, my one-on-ones, like doing seminars with the whole company and talking about, doing training, whatever. And, like I said, I was working on a couple of different things. My wife started a coffee company and just kind of got a little bit of entrepreneurial flair, kind of out of the gate into retirement. And hell, I was going to make t-shirts. I was like, man, I want some cool t-shirts with this design. And I was working with a guy just on a brand design, really, and he's like, he kind of challenged me. He's like, Dale, like, you've been in leadership for 20 years. You grew a company like into, the stratosphere. Like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to go make t-shirts now? Like, people could really get a lot out of, you teaching them, coaching them, whatever. And it did click. That's when it kind of hit me. I was like, yeah, man, I do love working with people and kind of helping them and just shedding, my experience and perspective that maybe it will help them and just find a way. I mean, so that's what I did. I took what was going to be, just t-shirts I wanted, and if someone else wanted to buy them, whatever, and turned it into a coaching, advisory, online training company. It's been a blast. I mean, I came out official in February after I finished my transition out of Corsica, and went right into it and picked up clients right away. And now this is what I'm doing every day. I'm working with people that are in demanding roles, right? When you're the owner of a business, let's say, or you're in a top executive position, whatever, you're in a position that's demanding. Number one, it's a lonely place to be, right? You don't have a lot of people that you can talk to about it, right? It's just a lonely place. So having someone that you can turn to, go, man, I'm struggling with this challenge, and having someone to work through, and go through that. So I'm really focused on folks that are just in those positions of high demand, whether an entrepreneur, a business owner, a top exec, or whatever, someone that's just got a lot on their plate, and wants some coaching, training, so on, and leadership, personal development, things like that.
Got it. So love everything that you're saying because I love helping people too, man. That's why I do this. It's fun for me. I was oh good. My collar is going to be like that today, and it's going to keep flipping up this whole time. So this will be interesting. So that's like the fifth time I've fixed it. Um, so so yeah, I was the guy that I would I was terrified of selling. Okay, because I didn't want to hear the words no
Sure.
or get out. So instead, I would just find things to do to keep myself feeling busy.
Yeah.
So I'd switch from AutoTask to ConnectWise. Then I'd switch to Kaseya, and then let's switch my antivirus this time. And every 3 to 6 months, I'm finding something new to do. Um, and that is clearly not the solution to building for scale.
Sure.
You're never even going to get a bunch of clients. I mean, let alone serve them poorly. You're just never going to have clients if you never go out and ask for people's money.
Absolutely. No money, no mission, right? Like no money, no business, no money, no mission, no money, no service, right? It is a lifeline, it's the necessary evil of getting into business.
People are saying they can barely hear me. So did I get louder, Dale?
I can hear you. I can't hear myself, so I don't know how it compares with that. I can hear you. It's not too soft, but.
Okay. Well, I turned it up. We'll see. Hopefully that fixes it. Gavin, feel free to let me know if it's still bad. I'll be able to fix that in post-production for the podcast at least. So today we're going to talk about your time at Corsica a little bit, and then we're going to talk about some of the philosophy that kind of you got to work with, utilize, develop in order to turn Corsica into the powerhouse that it was. So for those of you wondering, this isn't going to be like a fluff piece. I'm actually going to ask Dale like real questions that you guys want to know. So feel free to pop questions into the chat if you have some. So can you tell us like some metrics about Corsica? Size of the company, revenue, employees, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in its final year that I was there as CEO, we were up pre-COVID, of course. We were up near 200 employees, over $30 million of revenue. We were in multiple regions. Yeah, I mean, the high level stats, absolutely. That's where we were. Started from nothing. I know a lot of people get into questions around like, capital, startup. I started with an ad in the Yellow Pages and an agreement to pay my cousin who was out of a job that I would pay him minimum wage when he wasn't billing, and I'd pay him $15 an hour when he was billing. And so he had an incentive to get out there and bill. I had to add in Yellow Pages, and meanwhile, I was working full time. So I knew there was an opportunity out there. And look, we're talking. I started what became Corsica when I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. What I did in the Marine Corps was tactical data networking. So I was in, I'll say, IT at a time when IT was everything, right? I can run fiber. I can build web pages. I could build servers. I mean, my job as a Marine was to do all of the above. That was help desk, server administration, and through that time, so I was in the Marine Corps from '98 to 2002. So there's a lot of tech changing there. I mean, broadband's hitting the streets. Exchange. So I got to take a 7,500 user in a network in the Marine Corps. While I was there, we went from Banyan Vines to Exchange on NT, from NT into Active Directory. I just went through some really foundational times that molded the rest of, what we're doing today in tech. And then I was fortunate to be in a position that I wasn't pigeonholed into just pulling cable all day or, working on the servers all day. It was everything in between.
That's really cool. I think I might have fixed the volume issue. We're gonna hope for the best here.
Sounds a little better.
That's good. I'll take better. So you said you kind of started with nothing. So day one, you had an ad in the paper or Yellow Pages, and you had an agreement with your cousin. You said to pay him even minimum wage, and was that 40 hours a week?
Yes. Yes, it was. That was my commitment. So, and even before that, I would say, before I incorporated what became Corsica, I was operating as sole proprietor. So I was networking with folks that I was just meeting out in town, and I was doing work after hours, right? I was finding small businesses that, my first client and project was a leasing company owner out in Southern California that, literally was just at a event. I think we were at a UFC pay-per-view or something. And he was like, man, oh, you're in tech, this damn BlackBerry, my calendar says this and my BlackBerry says that, back when we all had BlackBerries. And, he was just, I was like, hey, Monday evening, buy a case of beer, I'll come in and we'll knock that out. And that was like my first taste of like what I knew and the service of others, right? So to where we kind of started here, like serving others. I only recently realized like what I really liked about what I was doing was the service of. I wasn't really geeking out about the tech. I'm super technical, right? I don't geek out about the tech. I get my thrills out of taking that tech and solving people's problems with it, right? And that fulfillment that you get from that. And that was my first taste of it, So here I go in, a guy had a small business server from Dell, like back then, that's what everyone, they bought this, Microsoft small business server from Dell and they didn't know what to do with it. They just plugged it in and, it's running pop email and all this other stuff. And they got a BlackBerry. They don't know why it doesn't work. And so I went in there and I spent a couple hours and just did the magic stuff I did. It was easy to me. I did it every day. I was running a 7,500 user, exchange farm, so got in there and he was just like, I was his hero, and that was it. And as I was transitioning, and I did a couple other projects like that. So while I was still in Marine Corps, I had like 6 clients, again, just servicing them myself after hours, billing them by the hour, just getting some extra side money or whatever. And I was out on Torrey Pines golf course with my wife. Tiger Woods was big at the time, and the thing to see. Not that I was a big golfer, but it was like, if you can go see Tiger Woods, go see him. I remember today we were walking on Torrey Pines there, and I told my wife, I said, I was about the EAS. I said, when we go back home, I'm gonna start my own business. And from there, came back to Maryland, and that's when I said, okay, let's start planting some seeds, and did that.
That is really cool, man. So you started the business. What happened with like clients? How long did it take for you to? So no, wait. You already had like 6 clients when you started the business. So that's how you were able to pay your cousin.
No.
Sort of.
No. So I had that money there, and that was hourly, right? So this is, timing wise, this is 2002, right? So the industry of managed services really wasn't that, it was in its infancy, in a big way. And so we were still hourly, how I was able to pay my cousin was, just being frugal on my own and getting my own, business plan together, and look, even at the time, I was 22 at the time, which I hated. Like when you go into the bank and asking for loans, I was like, write your business plan. I don't want to write a damn plan. I want to just give me the money. I'll go to work. I'll get this thing going. I know what I need to do. But in so many ways, I had put together a business plan, and I had looked at just the math, of just living well within my means so that I had something left over so I could start this thing, right? Like, so I could, get going. So in the beginnings, it was that, as I did that, we grew clients, and we were doing hourly. And like I said, back then it was, this is pre-Facebook, Google even then was at its infancy. We didn't even know what SEO was at the time, if it even was a thing. So the ad in the Yellow Pages, I started networking, local chamber of commerce, talking with business owners, and just sourcing out what the problems were, and just being able to, like, that's where my technical ability came in, right? That I could go, yeah, I know how to fix that. Would you like me to fix it? And then I would just kind of employ my cousin and against the needs that came in. So being frugal. A little bit further down the line, I ended up contracting myself into a government staffing job. So I'm in the Baltimore, DC area. So there's a lot of government contract work here, obviously a lot of IT. So I contracted myself in as a 1099 at a decent hourly rate. Again, kept my modest salary and took the leftover and just dumped it into the entity, into Corsica, and used that just to start building it, hiring, so on.
Very nice. So that's an excellent way to get started. Obviously, everyone should kind of live well within their means, and everyone should always do their best to pay themselves a salary. And I think it's also important to pay yourself a reasonable salary too. and make sure that there's still profit left over for the business to utilize to hire people or upgrade your computer or whatever you need for the business, right? I mean, eventually you're going to need to buy a bunch of computers when you land a big project. And do you really want to go to the client and say, okay, so all I need is a check from you for $35,000? Now,
Sure.
me personally, I don't have a problem doing that because I'm not a flipping bank. If they want a loan, they can use a credit card.
Right. No, and look, and
Um,
those are the things I think, every entrepreneur, MSP, IT company, whatever, needs to understand, right? One of the things that I work with people and advise, like, look, okay, the minute you transition from being that tech and you want to go out and do your own thing, so you go do that, you start your own business. Well, you actually ceased being a tech and you started being a business owner, right? Your job changed. Now, in
mhm,
your new capacity with your new business, you may need to play the role of a technician, but you're not going to be able to outsource or get away from the fact that you are now that business owner. That's your job
absolutely.
in that business. So now those things like that business plan, the reinvestment back into the business, the hiring, all those, the cash flows is what I was looking for there. So cash flow, right, and setting yourself up for success, in having a plan, those things, like, you can't just go start, installing servers and forget about the rest. It's going to come back. Even you make the point about paying yourself a salary. I mean, I'm not a tax advisor here, but you have to pay yourself a fair, reasonable salary, right? Especially if you have profits coming in. It's expected. So it's things like that you learn. Taxes. I know a lot of young business owners myself. That tax thing, if you don't understand business now that you're a business owner and tax implications of that, right? That's something else that you've got to actually be putting those profits aside, to pay the tax bill that's coming, right? Depending on how you set your entity up. So there's so much from a perspective of that transition into being a business owner that you really have to take it serious that you're a business owner now. And yes, you're technical, and yes, you can deliver those services. But that's not your main job anymore, if that makes sense.
So when people say to you, I know I need to pay myself a reasonable salary and I know that I need to live within my means, but like my business has all these bills and my personal life has all these bills, and I'm throwing, some of these bills into a hat and picking to see which ones I'm going to pay this month. What can I do?
When it comes to things like that, look, that's why I say, start it on the side, right? If that's the problem, like if that's your problem, like you don't have a ton of capital savings to kind of have a year plan, to get this thing going, and how you're going to take that capital and put it to work to hopefully to get it growing before it's gone, in 101 business planning. Keep your job, and work with partners and find ways to grow your business. Or maybe look, there's still, if you think even the timing on when I got started at 2000, we're at that kind of 20-year mark where that first, 10 years, where there's a lot of new businesses starting up. There may be still some time and material shops that are out there on the market that may be looking to get out. So maybe, and if they were a time and material business, they probably don't have a strong exit plan, right? So maybe go partner with one of them and go, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Where are you at, in your journey? You've been doing this, computer repair shop for, 20 years now. I know you have some clients. Let's talk about that. That might be an opportunity to go, transition, a business that's, hourly. So it's not worth a ton, but it's got a very loyal client base, right? That client base is there. They're sticking with this guy. They're paying hourly, whatever. But they may be hungry and interested in a transition to an MSP. So maybe working out some sort of partnership agreement that's a buyout of sorts and things like that.
Excellent. All right. Since we're talking about money, don't worry, nothing ridiculous. How much did you end up having to, like, utilize your savings at all to invest into the company to get things up and running?
No, like I said, once I contracted myself in, in a full-time role, and that revenue was now generated by my entity. Now I had revenue coming in that I built with, so I didn't start with any capital. I used what was coming in. Again, I kept my salary modest for what is it. So I had a job, right, and then I got asked for a government gig, like, hey, what do we got to do to keep you, And I said, well,
Got it.
hire my company and keep me in here, and then I, like I said, then I was a 1099. I got to charge my rate, right? My service rate, it wasn't about my salary anymore. It was like, hey, what do we got to do to keep you? Hire me by a service hourly rate. And then I got to keep my salary and take the rest and build the business.
Got it. So when you first started, I'm gonna talk more about when you were like full time in your business. Okay.
Sure.
So how many hours a day, days a week do you feel like you were working for those first couple years?
So my transition to full time. So again, I was working full time billing and hired my cousin. He was my first employee. My second employee was actually my wife, right? Because now we had a growing business. A few months in, we got clients. Now the tech's in the field. We need someone to field the calls, schedule the tech. And over time, as those demands grew, I saw the business grow, and I said, hey, okay. So one, yes, I'm working full time. I'm commuting to, at the time, DC. So I got a 3-hour round trip commute. So I'm working full time, 3-hour round trip commute. And then I'm getting back and I'm helping with server projects. We're staging servers, workstations, whatever. So in the beginning, it was whatever it took, it was whatever it took, whatever needed to get done. So was that the 60, 80-hour week? Yes. It was whatever it took to get it done.
And how did this change? Like at what point did you stop having to work 60 to 80 hours a week?
So the beauty of the opportunity I took to get started was I owned that position, so to speak, right? I had a contracted position to fill. So I don't recall exactly when, but at one point, we're growing the commercial side of the business. In fact, I started the business, especially when I got back here, I failed to mention, is I thought I was going to go be a government contractor, right? I'm a service disabled veteran. At the time, there's the initial law bills were being passed to make service disabled veteran set asides. 3% of all government contracting was supposed to go to 3% to service disabled veteran firms. And here I was like, hey, here I am. So I thought I was going to do that, but that industry that became MSP was taken off like a rocket, right? So even though I had started the business thinking that, but I put the ad in the papers and started serving commercial clients, and that demand was growing so fast. And as that business was growing, I found myself, 2, 3, 4 employees or whatever while I'm working full time. I just kind of hit me one day and goes, wow, okay, look how far we're going when I'm working full time over in this contracting gig. What could it be if I was throwing that 40 hours a week plus travel plus commute into the business, the core business? And so it did the same thing. So now I said, okay, well now I'll go capture. What I did was went and replaced myself on that contract. So I recruited someone, staffed them in that role. So now I got to keep the revenue. Right now, that revenue now goes to someone else's salary instead of mine, but the other revenue comes in that helps sustain bringing me over on my now, I'll say, commercial salary. And then, that was it. But now the business has all of my attention, right? It's not just when I get back at the end of the day and on the weekends. Now it has 100% of my attention, every day of the week.
So at what point, like what year marker do you feel like your thought process was like, oh man, I really have something here. This has gotten big, and now I need to start organizing things, or else as I continue to grow, as this company continues to grow, we're just going to grow into more bad habits.
Well, what was funny is I would say it was probably around, so this was, I incorporated the company. I got out of the Marines 2002, incorporated 2003. I would say it was between 2005, 2006 timeframe. And this will be a little bit laughable, right? So I came from enterprise IT, and I was used to using enterprise tools, SMS, Semantic, Enterprise Edition, these things that were made for domain environments, right? Mm-hmm. So again, if you think timing, there's not a ton of mainstream RMM tools at this time, right? This industry, it's still fresh. So I'm running systems as if without an RMM, right? I'm installing these corporate tool, backup exec, Semantic Enterprise Edition, all these corporate tools that I knew were solid for the commercial, for the business workplace. And I was employing them as such, but that, was absent that RMM feature, right? Now we're remoting into all these individual systems, managing them individually, checking them individually. We're setting up various, I think IP Century back then, maybe. Oh, boy. It's been a while, right? I'm thinking like, I'm using IP Century. I'm using our ticketing system was a VBB board, right? Where, we would log service calls as topics as private VB, right? Because back then we're all like pre-social, all us nerds. Where were we talking? We were on VBB boards, right? And IRC and, all these things. So I was using all those things at the time to build this, cobbled together MSP, right? Instead of a PSA, I had a VBB board, right? Instead of a monitoring system, I had IP Century, checking in. We were setting up, you could, back then you could set up Messenger, the Messenger service, to send alerts to different things. And we were having those things forward up to us. So we cobbled it together. So to get to your question, where I had to break through was I literally got cold called by Enable, still around today. And it was about 2006. I got cold called from Enable going, "Hey, we're an RMM." I'm like, "What's an RMM?" You're like, "Oh, it's this, that, and the other for managed service companies." I'm like, "What's a managed service company?" So I didn't even know. Like I thought I was just doing, I was taking my enterprise IT management mindset and I was serving different small, medium businesses, right? And using the technology I knew. And then these guys call me and go, "Yeah." And I literally was like, "What's an MSP?" And then they tell me, and I'm like, I've been an MSP before I even knew it was an MSP. Like, know. And then they enlightened me, right? Then they're like, "Okay, well, let me show you what RMM can do." And that was like, boom, that's what we need. We need a system that, regardless of the domains authentication, that can talk to them all, right? So that empowered us there. They introduced us to Autotask at that point, right? What's a PSA? Mm-hmm. Well, boom, here's a ticketing system. Same thing, right? You're serving multiple clients in one ticketing system. Whereas in corporate, we were used to just having those internal, like Trackit and things like that were a system for an organization. The RMM, pre-RMM, I was using SMS, if you know that systems management server from Microsoft, again, a corporate tool to remote into systems, gather inventory, all the things that an RMM does. So it was that time, 2006, I transitioned and also got educated by them, right? One of the things that I loved about Enable, Gavin Garbett at the time, David Weeks, all these guys, Marco, people that now educated me on how I could take it to the next level, right? I knew the tech, I knew the enterprise tool, I knew the mindset of management, systems management. But now they taught me the business of an MSP, the real business, right? Because at the time I'm selling block hours, I'm doing all this old school, like low risk stuff, right? So what I loved about Enable is, aside from the technology, they had Enable University, which was an online course that taught you like, hey, this is how you do sales. Here's how you build your contracts. Here's how you build your calculators. And all that stuff was things that I was trying to invent. I was trying to figure it out. So they gave me this playbook, if you will, for me to mold as my own, right? And I think that's important for everyone to know. All these companies out there are going to give you the way they want to see you do it. But man, take that and make your own, because you're going to have competing interests. Microsoft, your Microsoft, account manager is going to want to see you pushing this, and your other company is going to want to see you pushing that. But at the end of the day, this is your company, right? And they're your clients. And more importantly, you're serving your clients' problems, right? So what the vendor wants to sell might not match up with what your client problems are today. And that's what you got to stay focused on. You got to focus on what your clients active, solving their problems, not pushing tech on them. If there's new tech that will solve problems for your clients, yeah, look, I'm not naive in that regard, but don't just because, Microsoft wants you doing X, or, the ConnectWise wants you pushing this, whatever, serve your clients first, right? And if there's alignment between the objectives of these software and hardware vendors out there, if there's alignment there, yeah, man, win-win. But otherwise, you got to keep the main thing. And the main thing is solving your clients' problems, not your vendor sales problems.
All right. I feel like this is a good time for a pause in the podcast to go to the next part. I'm going to break it up into multiple days. That way we don't have one long, 2-hour thing. So, all right. So Dale, we've been talking about, I think my cat's dying. What are you doing? Do you have a hairball? Can you die a little quieter? I don't know what to do. I think it's a hairball, but
sounds like a hairball.
I turned and she looks up at me like, "Daddy, please make it stop. I don't know how to help you." Oh boy. Yeah. Well, I feel like we should just start that little section over.
Sure.
Hopefully she stops dying. And she continues. All right. So Dale, before we were talking about, wow,
it's just going to get louder.
It is. Here, you know what? Let's do a thing, Izzy. Come on here. I'll just let you leave. I know you want to. No, I want to go do it on your bed. Oh, thanks. I'll just be over here hiding. Cats are great, guys.
Yeah, she's not going to just ruin your podcast. She's going to ruin your sheets. She's going to upcheck.
Yeah. I love having a small home that I don't have a dedicated office. It's great.
I hear you.
All right. We're going to try this one more time. So, Dale.
Yes, sir.
We were talking yesterday about how oh boy, how kind of you got started and what it was like as you started to grow in those first few years. And the one thing we didn't talk about, Dale, is I felt a little intimidated after we met. I don't know if you realized I started growing my beard.
Oh, look at you.
So
I do a segment about beard growth.
No, we don't have to do a whole segment about it. But I just thought you would appreciate that.
I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yours is quite nice. I'm a fan. So when we stopped in 2006, so roughly 4 years after you started the actual business, Enable reached out to you. They started teaching you about what an MSP is. Like, you were already kind of doing this. You were already very knowledgeable in enterprise tech and performing enterprise service thanks to your experience in the Marines. So what do you feel like once you started to get like the right tools or just better tools? I don't know if there's ever a right tool.
I'd say probably more aligned tools, right? I was using tools, but certainly the RMM, PSA, they were made for what I was doing, right? They solved that problem.
So once you got the RMM, the PSA, what do you feel like your biggest hurdle was to continue to grow?
I certainly now you get into the world of sales and marketing. So Enable, taught me how to be, fixed fee MSP, right? How to be, reactive versus proactive versus fixed fee, hardware as a service, all these things. Now, the thing that I thought was a challenge certainly then was I had all these clients that were accustomed to that traditional way, hourly, block time, things like that. So now I had to go convince these clients to move over to more of the monthly, right? So at the time, as an industry, again, it's still fresh. So clients weren't really accustomed to paying per month like they are today, right? To them, especially at that time, it was expected to be hourly and they were hoping to call you as little as possible, right? But meanwhile, we all knew, and I certainly knew, and this was my enterprise mindset, I knew we needed to be doing maintenance on the systems, although I was still serving that through block hours, right? I was telling the clients, hey, you got so many systems, we're going to charge you so many hours per month. We're going to, deduct them, whatever. Getting enlightened to now I've got this tool set. Now I can go fixed fee and what that really meant. And at the time, Gavin Garbett, and I think definitely, he's got a new company today, Augment, which is today's SaaS version of what RMM was today, right? RMM, sure, it's there. As long as we got hardware, we're going to need it. But today, everything's moved into the cloud. So how do we do the same thing for cloud services? So Augment's a major thing I'm following right now because it's really in the next phase. That's the evolution, if you will. And I think it's exactly what's needed today versus then. But my biggest challenge was taking my clients and convincing them to now pay me this fixed monthly fee, right? We're not going to be counting hours anymore. We're going to be this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
That's scary.
It is
scary back at that time. Yeah,
it was.
I remember that transition, like when I got started, everything was still like very commonly block hours. And I was approaching companies saying, you don't need a server. I mean, this is back in 2009.
Yeah.
You don't need a server. We can do everything in the cloud. You don't need to pay me per hour. I can just manage everything, maintain it all, and just keep your business up and running for X dollars a workstation, and then X dollars a user, and X dollars a server, and all that. Like, it was scary.
Yeah, and there was a huge reluctance. So my account manager at the time, David Week, still over there at Enable, but many moons ago when he was not as big a shoes as he has today, but he was my account manager. So we would have these weekly calls. I would have weekly coaching calls with them, kind of going through the process. They were helping me, turn into a mature MSP, I'll say. And it was a joke, right? We had built a list, like, what are all my existing clients? How much are they paying per month? How many systems do they have? And I had the transition list. So the joke was David would call me and go, hey, David, Dale, how are you doing transitioning your clients over? And I'm like, oh, I haven't transitioned any of my clients, but the new prospects I'm talking to, they love this shit, man. To them, it was like, oh, wow, I don't have to count hours anymore. They got it, right? So what was funny was, whereas we were expecting, the expectation was by their blueprint to convert your existing clients. Well, I was just going to market to new prospects about this new way of delivering IT services, which was the fixed monthly fee. And look, we're not counting hours anymore. And my thing was, at the time, was like, look, those other guys billing you by the hour, they're licking their chops, hoping you get a virus, right? Because if you get a virus and they got to spend 8 hours in here fixing it, well, they have a good day at the office. You have a bad day at the office. But on a fixed fee, you're going to pay me the same whether you get viruses or not. So now I'm incentivized that you're not going to get viruses. In fact, I'm going to bring you virus software, and I'm going to put mine in there, and we're going to make sure yours is updated so that you don't get viruses. So now you're going to get the benefit of not having downtime, not having system issues, because I'm going to do what I want to do, which is proactively maintain your network the way it should be so that you have less problems. You having less problems means more money for you. You having less problems means more money for me. It's a win-win, right? And I wasn't afraid to have that conversation with clients, right? The less issues you have, the more profitable I'm going to be, but that is my job. And that's what you want, right? And I would relive that pain. Hey, what was it like when you came in to lost files and you realize your backups haven't been gone, right? And things like that, or you weren't patched, or whatever the case may be. Those were, or you got a virus because you realized you didn't know to renew your semantic antivirus at the time, whatever it was. So, my new prospects got it, right? Because I could talk to the pain of that reactive model that, hey, just call me when there's a fire. And quite frankly, by that point, I had been burnt out by that firefighting business, right? That fighting business, it's not scalable. And it's just the biggest stress of the world. Like every day you're like, what am I coming into? What fire am I going to have to go put out today? So, so we started focusing on prospects who wanted to do business the way we wanted to do business, fixed fee, managed services. And if they didn't, and what I would do is like, as my legacy clients, and look, you don't love every client. So my clients that didn't see the value in that, I would say, hey, well, sorry, this is how I'm doing business now. I don't sell block hours anymore. Well, but yeah, I'm sorry. Well, and I think that's one lesson, to tell is like, again, run your business for you, your vision is. Even your clients, they might want to see you do business, and you should open your ears to opportunities to improve and grow based on the needs of your clients. But there's going to be some exceptions out there, and you don't want to manage by exceptions. You want to manage by something that you can grow and scale, So those clients at the time for me who wanted me to just bill them by the hour and or whatever, like I was already moving on. I knew I had a winning formula. So if they weren't going to come, hey, see ya, call the computer service guy that's going to bill you by the hour. That's not me anymore.
So earlier when I asked you about your kind of biggest hurdle, a lot of MSPs think of their hurdle is like a particular milestone. Sometimes they get to a certain point and they feel like they've plateaued, and maybe it's we're at like 800,000, 900,000 revenue a year. We just can't figure out how to break into the 7-figure club, or we've got X number of employees and we just can't figure out how to continue to grow, so that we need more employees. Because unless you're doing business wrong, and more employees typically means you're busier and your business is making more money. Do you feel like you at any point kind of plateaued?
Fortunately, we never really did. We were always on a trajectory of growth. Over the course of that time, I was continuing to reinvest into the business. So I went and bought new office space to expand. I started in the bedroom of my house. My cousin was renting the room from me. We worked out of here. I think one day I came home and he was asleep and not answered the phone. That's when I hired my wife. And then, I was like, well, we need office space. Now we got 2 employees. So I rented a little, corner of an office. And then when their upstairs tenants moved out, I took over the upstairs, and then I grew into the half of their downstairs. And then I had to go buy my own building, and we were always growing. So I guess like that, my hurdle was always uncorking for the growth, so to speak. But otherwise staying consistent, like, getting into like, how did I grow? Like just networking and referrals, people want to do business with people they know and they like, right? And so you've got to get out there and network. You've got to expose yourself. You've got to tell people what you're doing. And I was constantly doing that. I went to networking events constantly. Anything I could go to, I did. And we made that a team effort. So my wife would go to things. She was on boards. I was on boards. We were going to whatever events we could. We were just talking. We would be intentional about going to these events. Like, hey, so-and-so's company is probably going to be there, or, hey, let's see how many, business cards we can get of prospects and ask for meetings there, So I think around growth, we were just always networking and growing the business, and being willing to open up and reinvest back into the business and to let it grow. I think what I see a lot too is the founder's cap. Where if anyone's not read it, those of you guys out there who are starting your own business, thinking about starting your own business, or maybe trying to find ways to improve. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I read that many moons ago, and that really talks about what I was speaking about earlier, which was, that mindset of like, once you start the business, now you're a business owner. But the founder's cap is real, right? So long as the founder is doing everything more than they should, now that business can only grow to what their two hands are capable of doing, right? So much as they hold on and do everything, that's as far as the business is going to grow. So, being willing to, delegate, shed as you grow, be willing to do that. Look, you can look at that as an expense, but I would challenge the fact that, those poor IT clients, right, that look at us as an expense, and we're going, no, we're actually an investment, right? Because when you get a good MSP, you're going to have less problems and your business is going to do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same mindset, right? If you're the MSP business owner, but you're struggling to grow, but you're also afraid to go hire, that office admin, right, that you need, or hire that salesperson, or hire that marketing person, because you want to do it. You want to do it all, right? That's the same mindset. You're looking at those things as expenses instead of investments, right? Because the best thing you could be doing is getting a resource to get you out there more, to, as far as marketing, right? Put you out there more so people can learn about who you are and what your business is and grow. You just can't do it all. And so long as you think you will, you won't grow.
While we were growing, what was the best source of leads? Was that typically the networking and referrals for you?
It was, and I wasn't afraid to ask clients, if they had any other folks. I think another way that I liked to win was like, hey, if I would always look at clients I was having success with, right? So if I'm having success with a healthcare provider or whatever, I'll go, okay, what other healthcare providers are in the area? And I'd just send an email, make a call, put them on the list, to target a networking event or whatever, and say, hey, Bob over to, like, we did a lot of small medical offices, for example. So if I want a dental office here that was like the premium one in that area, I would look in the surrounding area and go, and I would start soliciting out to them, like, hey, I'm serving Dr. Downs, and as you may know, he's got a prominent practice. Maybe there's a way that I could help you too, right? And now I'm coming with some credibility, right? That's always big. You got to come with the credibility, but you got to seek first to understand, right? So when you get the opportunity to talk to folks, whether you're networking or whatever, make it about them, like not about you. This is what I do. No, tell me, hey, what do you do? Oh, you run a dentist office. Great. Like, how long have you been doing that? How many systems do you have? Do you have any software? Right? You just let them tell their story, and then their problems are going to come about, and then you just kind of challenge them. Well, how are you addressing that problem? Well, I've got a guy, but he only does this on the side, and he can get to me every 3 days. Oh, really? Hey, well, if you ever get in a jam, call my team. I mean, my staff's full time. We service people if it's on site same day if we have to. If you do, and you're just planting seeds, right? Because the next time that dude that he's down and he's calling his cousin's uncle's nephew, who does it on the side, and he can't get there, he's going to grab that next card. He's going to call you, and you've won that. You do your thing. That was at the time definitely how we won a lot of new clients. Just planting seeds. Don't sell them. Have them sell you on what their problems are, and be ready to solve them.
What did your sales funnel kind of look like? You mentioned that you would. Okay, I just picked up Dr. Dan, the dentist. Now I'm gonna send an email or make a phone call or send a letter or whatever to these other dental offices and see who else is gonna bite. So can you kind of walk me through the overall sales, like the steps in the sales process that you eventually figured out this is the winner. If I do all of this stuff, we'll win every time, or most of the time, or whatever.
Well, I think for any business, you said the magic word, like you actually have to have a process, right? So if you get the opportunity, so there's, you're going to get your targets and you're going to hopefully turn them into leads and prospects. But at which point you get the opportunity to meet with them, right? So, I mean, a couple key things that anyone would want to, look, this might go 101, but let's just assume, right? So, you got to make sure you're meeting with the decision maker, right? So when you're out there prospecting, you're setting these appointments, or you're soliciting and you get an appointment, you want to ask those things like, okay, who makes these decisions? Okay, are they going to be in the meeting? And you really shouldn't take that meeting unless that person's going to be there, because no one can present your business or have these conversations better than you. And so when you're meeting with the office administrator, but they're not really the office manager, but they're not really the one who's going to make the decision, right? Well, tell me what you got to tell me, and I'll go tell the boss. Now, I need the boss in the room. Well, he's busy. Just let me know when he's not busy. What's not busy for him? Oh, that's 3 weeks out. Let's book it. Because it's a waste of time if you think you're going to go sell Sally, office manager, and she's going to go sell for you. She's not. It's just not going to happen, because what's going to happen is she's going to hand your proposal to Dr. Dan, and he's going to go straight to the bottom line. He's going to bypass any value proposition that you're trying to make. And he's going to go, okay, what's the other guys look like? Right. And so number one, make sure you're meeting with the person that you can build a relationship with.
Yes.
That has the power to make the decision. And you should hold fast to that, because you don't want to waste your time. You got the commute time, you got the time spent, you got the time to probably have to go back again if Dr. Dan does want to meet you. Now you're starting all over. So I stay firm in that, and there's no reason not to. It's from there though. Usually, what I like to do is make my first meeting all about them. Right. I'm there to introduce myself, but like I said earlier, I want to know why am I here? Like, one of the things I would always just start with, just why am I here? And they would tell you everything you needed to know. Right. Their backups failed and they couldn't recover. Their current guy isn't responsive enough. They had a project go wrong. There's a reason you're there, especially today. I'd say the MSP client is more the norm now, right? I feel like there's more clients out there that are, familiar with doing business with an MSP than was when I started. So you're going to be there probably for some sort of service reason with their existing MSP at this juncture. So for me, if I were, in that first time appointment, I'd be talking about, hey, well, why am I here? And let them talk, let them do the talking. And then gobble all that up and then get your stuff down. So, and I'm not naming these processes, but this is a good process that I've seen work, is now you're info gathering, right? You're just interview, or, well, how many offices do you have? How many systems do you have? Servers? Where are your users? Like, you're getting all this as they're telling you about their problems, their systems, or whatever. And then you schedule the next meeting, right? Don't sell them day one, right? Quickly let them have the majority of the time. And then at the end go, hey, well, listen, here's what I hear. I hear your backups failed you. You did that. You thought they were working. They weren't working. Okay. You've got slow response time. So these are things that we definitely do. Here's a couple things. We do the X regarding backups. We do Y regarding service. I tell you what, I'm going to take all this. When's your next availability? How soon can I get back here and kind of dive into these things and show you more about what we do? Then you take that back. You've already got your appointment set. Don't leave the first meeting without having the next one set. Never leave a meeting without having the next meeting set. Don't
Absolutely.
do it. Then now you go back and put your presentation together. And when you go back there and you present on those top 1, 2, 3 problems that client has. This was something when I was bringing up sales folks, I would lecture them, right? We would go in and the client would tell us about all these service problems. And then the sales guy would go, well, let me tell you about our antivirus, no.
They don't care how the watch is made. They just want to know what time it is.
Exactly. And so you need to focus on, again, how you solve the problems that are a priority to them. Not saying you don't mention the other things, but those are bonuses, right? And so that client, they've got poor backups, they've got poor service. Yep. We include the backups, we include the software, we include the hardware. We're going to back you up locally. We're going to back you up in the cloud. This is the benefits of all those things. Our service times are X. This is what you expect. Help desk issues, real time, on site, next business day at the latest, whatever your service metrics are, using all that as an example. But oh, by the way, we also do this. We also provide your 365, your 365 client. How's that going for you? Yeah, we have some struggles, licenses, blah, blah, blah. We don't know what we have. Yep, well, we'll manage that for you too. And you make light work of all the other things. You make those things like a bonus. Like, hey, yeah, I'm going to come solve those reasons while I'm here. And I'm also but wait, there's more, right? Here's the rest that you're going to get from dealing with me. That's it, man. I mean, it sounds simple, but I'm a simple, stupid guy, man. The more you complicate it, the more hurdles you're going to make, the more stress you're going to be. First time appointment, make it all about them. Go back, regroup, have that next meeting set, go in there and present based on their problems, show them the bonus of doing business with you, the add-ons, the benefits that they'll get, and then get them started. So winning formula, close them quick.
All right, Dale. So we've been talking about kind of your history with growing your business, and we spoke about your sales process and how important it is to educate the prospect on what you're going to do for them and why it's important for them, and less about and we use this tool, and if you open up this drawer in my toolbox, I've got one of these. They don't care, right? So let's talk about scaling now. So I feel like there's a few things that are really important to kind of scaling an MSP. And we'll go through each of them individually. I think first is you have to have processes in place kind of for everything.
Yeah.
And not just like oh, by the way, here's how I recommend doing it. Like, no, here's a documentation that we wrote up with screenshots and arrows and whatever. This is the way you will be doing this.
Yep.
Or there will be consequences.
Yep.
So where do we start? How do we start developing these processes?
So I think this is one of these investment areas, right? This is the task always avoided by us technicians, right? Like the techs never want to document. They never want to do good ticket notes. I know there's probably some techs out there going, I do excellent ticket notes. Yeah, I know, but you're a unicorn. I think like a lot of techs just want to get on to the next ticket. They just want to solve the next problem. It's been my experience, maybe not everyone. But this is an investment area where you can bring in someone that's non-technical and task them with running down these processes, get them centrally documented, reviewing them, training the team on them. And I think this is key. I think my early course successes were in that I could bring in junior technicians that were looking for an opportunity and give them processes and training and cut them loose to do the work, right? So I can move them up later once they got experience, but I would put them in low impact roles, whether it was on the NOC, so they're in the back end just responding to alert tickets, or maybe they're just a junior tier 1 person that's resetting passwords so that the more senior guys can work on the more difficult things, or maybe they're starting in the staging area so we can see their quality of work before we put them in front of a customer. So I always liked having a core of junior spots that we could have documented processes so you can see the quality of work, the work, the ethic, the work ethic of that person. Are they on time? Are they a problem? All these things. Can they follow process, right? Do they speak up when they're running into issues? And that's the benefit of having good processes, right? You can turn more over to let people go. Now you're managing the process, not leaving everything open to interpretation for the staff, right? Now you've got people doing different things, different places, and pointing fingers, right? One tech comes behind the other, and he did it one way, and the other tech comes in a few weeks later and goes, "Well, this printer's set up all stupid," and the customer goes, "Well, your other guy set it up." Right? I mean, how many times does that happen? So so process is important, but it's what I've seen something that MSPs avoid. So I think that's an investment area where you can get a junior, admin person that's a tech writer or whatever that can own and maintain that stuff. And then you can have team meetings like, hey, let's talk about issues, with our processes. Well, whatever's not working, you've got something to adjust. If you don't have a system, you don't have processes, how are you adjusting for the issues that you're running into? How are you evolving? I mean, you can't, you're just chasing your tail, so.
And is there like this is the process you should write first if you haven't written any? Like, is there a magical SOP?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I think the junior task, and I think the word I've not said yet that's key is the automation, right? I mean, how can you automate if you don't have a process defined, right? What are you automating based on? So I think that the opportunity for identifying these processes are the ability to delegate more and the ability to automate. So where do you start from there? You got to start with your most routine tasks, right? You just, how do you process a call? How do you process tickets? Like, again, techs aside, the technicals aside, you still got a business to run, right? So how are we operating? What are our processes as a business? And I say start with the routines. You want all your routine stuff documented, stuff that you can train these junior folks to come in at a lower cost, lower risk, and as long as they can follow directions and escalate when it's not going according to the directions to the next year. Those are the key things that you get documented. Yeah, I think that's definitely without having a MSP to sit here or dive into, but yeah, I think if you don't have processes around the fundamentals, that you definitely would have to start there.
And just because you've created a process, like once you build it, you're done. Like you can move on to the next process. You never have to touch that first one again, right?
Well, one of the things that I found, and I recommend it to business owners all around, is have you ever heard of Traction?
Yeah.
So Traction's a great playbook for any business to sit down and start getting organized, right? And a part of that is identifying your accountabilities, who's accountable for what processes. But that also introduces you as a business operation, to do things like identify and discuss and solve issues. Well, where do issues come from? Well, this process is broken, or this process didn't work for this client. And in fact, it didn't work for that client last week. That may be a problem, right? So let's dive into that. So are your process set it and forget it and throw away? No, you've got to you have processes. Like you have processes now. Probably your first fundamental problem is they're just not documented. So get them documented. Now you've got a process. You've got your system defined, right? You had a system. Now you've defined it. Now you've got something that you can adjust. And when you adjust, you can train on it. So no, it's not set it and forget it. You should always be creating processes. And the best time to create processes is when you're going through it. But again, I think it's my experience that technicians don't love it. They don't love doing that. So delegate that, outsource that to someone that's their job. That they can be a direct report of someone with authority that you can say, hey, go in there and document how we respond to alerts, right? And dig into it and help put this together. But they're never static. They're going to evolve.
Good. So let's talk about the next thing that I think is important when it comes to scaling an MSP. Company culture. You can't be the only person creating the documents and following them.
Sure.
So how do you build a company culture? And have you found, like, I don't know, this is definitely what to do and what not to do when it comes to culture type stuff?
Yeah, I think one of the again, keeping on the track of now you're a business owner. Okay, well now you've got employees. So that means you're a leader, right? So when you're a business owner, you're establishing your business processes, you're managing the processes, you're holding people accountable to the processes, you're managing the exceptions, right? But you're also leading, right? So you manage processes and you lead people, okay? So as you're growing and you're scaling, it's not all about just the tech, not all about the processes. You've got human freaking beings and you're in a service business, right? So what's the value of an MSP? The service delivery by way of your people, right? Your clients have to enjoy doing business with you, right? That process of doing business, right? Submitting a service request, having good client communication, right? Not just they submit a ticket and now it's in the void. Now the client has to call you back, to find out what's going on with their ticket, but a culture of being client oriented, that everyone understands the pain and the fear of the unknown that it is to be a client with a problem, right? So instilling a culture of being client oriented, instilling a culture of being team oriented, right? We're all on the same team, so just because you're in a knock and you're on the help desk, right? Well, you guys are symbiotic. If he's not doing his job over on the knock, well, help desk, you're going to have problems, and help desk, you're not doing your job right. Well, that's going to cause more alerts on the back end because you're doing things, So I think, as you grow, the importance of quality leadership, it's really important, and that's the things I hear a lot about today, just working with clients is, frustration with leadership is what I hear a lot. So I think, like I say, Traction's a great management system to get your business organized, but really getting into some leadership development. I often recommend, Patrick Lencioni's stuff, 4 Truths About Employee Engagement. He's got various other books that really nail home some leadership concepts for managing an organization for a positive culture well. Jocko Willink, I've been a big fan. I'm a military guy, but I've been taught leadership since I was a private in the Marine Corps, and so leadership's always been core to me. But I always recommend a lot of Jocko Willink stuff because he's really into pure leadership development. So he always has a lot of great content with it. The things that you're going to deal, like again, operations tech, they're one thing, but dealing with ego, controlling your emotions, and all these things, culture, difficult people, all these things, like they're important too. They're equally important. I would say they're probably even more important in a service organization. Strong leadership is essential in a service organization because it shines through, right? We're not buying products off a shelf. Your clients aren't walking into your store, grabbing a product and walking out with it. They're engaging with your staff, your team, your communication cadence, all these, your managers, your salespeople, so that culture, they're going to wear it on their sleeve. And leadership really, really drives the culture. It's super important.
Very good. What about some things to do to cultivate teamwork? Because that's important, is making sure that your team are all working together and not pointing fingers.
Yeah.
Either at each other in the same department or at other departments. I've seen a lot of really poor company culture. So how do you get everybody to actually feel like they're on the same page? And what do you do when you've got just a couple bad apples? And what do you do if it seems like everything's circle in the drain?
Well, what's the fable on the bad apple?
I don't know.
It spoils the bunch, man. So, I think that, bad apples spoil the bunch, and I'm not saying, hey, go find your bad apples and fire them, but this goes back to leadership a little bit. You've got to hit issues head on. You can't let issues fester. And that's one of the things I like about the Traction model and bringing that into businesses is that it forces a weekly team discussion to identify, discuss, and solve issues. And those issues can be, hey, Sally, we've had failures here over and over again. Or let's identify the problem. Let's discuss it. Let's solve it as a team, right? And I think a lot of these things stew from avoiding difficult conversations, right? And granted, us techs, usually we're introverted and we just want to get our heads down and on the keyboards and work on problems. And I get it. Sometimes we want to avoid some of the personalities in space, but hey, we don't solve these problems unless we hit them head on. So, a couple ways. Number one, establishing an expectation of how we're going to work together. So back to one thing, one team's not doing something that they should be. Well, is that documented? Have we all agreed that's the process? Did we not? Okay, let's sit down and identify that process and get on the same page with it. What's broken down? Like, we have to hit these issues head on. We can't let them sit and fester or avoid. And I get it. Welcome to leadership. It's hard. It's hard, but you gotta hit issues when you hear about them. You got to prioritize them. That's your job now, especially when you're at scale, right? Especially when you've grown and you've got multiple tens or dozens of technicians. Now you're a leader. Again, you've delegated all these things that you used to do. When you broke the founder's cap, right? You brought in more people so you could do more. Now your job is to lead your people. And a part of leadership is dealing with these difficult conversations. And if they're difficult people, one of the things that Traction has a tool is a people analyzer, where you sit down as a team, you say, what is our culture? And the best way to do that is look at your best technician, best employee, and go, what are the 5 to 7 things that we like about Billy, right? What are they? What's great about Billy? I could have 10, right? We all have them. I wish I had 10 Billys. Okay. Why? What has Billy got? Well, there's your freaking culture right there, right? Now you've established your what you expect of your people, and you make that known, and now you hold people accountable to that, right? Are you being client oriented is a part of our culture, right? It's one of our values, right? You do that all of the time. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, or none of the time. You measure your people against these core values, right? And the people that fall too far down the stack, you line up your core values in Excel spreadsheet, values across the top, employee names down the bottom, and you go through each cell, you go plus, minus, or minus, right? You say, are they client oriented? Are they team oriented? Are they accountable? Do they operate with integrity, right? A lot of core values you'll see that, or maybe you'll come up with when you kind of identify that persona, and you analyze your people against that, right? And you set a bar and you say, hey, anyone that's below the bar, your bar could be like, of our 7 core values, you got to have a plus for 4 of them and no more than 3 plus minuses. That's the bar. So if you're all pluses, you're above the bar. If you're 4 pluses and 3 plus minuses, you're at the bar. If you're a minus in 3 pluses and 3 plus minus, you're below the bar. We've got to solve that problem. And we got to get you above the bar. Again, that's leadership. You're going to have to work with your people. You're going to have to identify these problems. And again, that's just documenting your culture, right? You've documented your culture. Now you've set expectations. Everyone has agreed to meet those expectations, and now you hold people accountable to it. So that's how you deal with the bad apples. If they can't come up to what the expectation of your ideal is, find someone who does. Bad apple spoils the bunch, man. So.
What are your what are your thoughts on like, I don't know, taking the team out to lunch, or getting a beer after work, that type of stuff? Like, at what point have you found that the lines kind of get blurred because they feel like you're not a boss and you're a buddy? Mm-hmm. And maybe they stop respecting you.
Yeah, and that's a tough one to overcome, right? Because you especially when you're small, everything's interpersonal. heck, man, I remember the day that I was joining LAN parties, playing Counter-Strike with my whole freaking team. I've been there and done that. But number one, like you are in charge, right? You are the boss. And so you want to maintain that, and you want to maintain that leadership, and because you're in a position of influence, and your influence is very powerful. So if you lower your standard to their standard, let's say, of an employee, and you're smoking and joking at a level that the employees do, now they think they can smoke and joke and they can get away with things that they can get away with amongst themselves because well, I just had a beer with Dale the other day, so we're good. I'll just show up a little late today, right? So you can do engagement with your people and maintain authority, so you can take them out to dinner, but you are the boss. You are in charge. It's not, I'm not your buddy. I'm your boss. So matters of being disrespected, and so you're going to get treated. You're going to teach people how to treat you. So if you allow for that, like if you're in a LAN party, gaming with your people or whatever, and you allow them to talk crap to you, but it's disrespectful. Like you're still their boss. I think I would be cautious with that, letting that type of relationship conduct itself outside of the office and not expect it not to blow over into the office. So unfortunately, as you grow, in the Marine Corps, we called it fraternization, right? So when we were private PFC and Lance Corporal, we were non-NCOs. But the minute we got promoted to Corporal and Sergeant, we were now NCOs, and we were expected to carry ourselves appropriately. That means we weren't fraternizing with the junior troops, because that was the case, that we needed to be in a position of authority when it was time for that, when it was important. So look, go find friends outside of work. Your employees aren't your friends. They're your employees. And there's ways, again, Patrick Lencioni book's 4 Truths about employee engagement, doing one-on-ones with your folks so that you do have professional time together. Those are all things that you can keep engagement up. But that doesn't mean you got to go smoke and joke with them, in a way that only, that's unprofessional.
Good. I agree. I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way that there's lines, and you just shouldn't cross them. And I'm the guy that everything's a joke to me, so I just find it so easy to joke around with people.
I joke around too. I'd say one thing I learned, again, when you're in a leadership role, you don't always realize you should know. And I'll say this for those leaders out there managing people, like, your words are really powerful. So even when you're joking, like you go josh someone like, man, look at your stupid haircut. That's coming from the boss, right? So even though you might be coming from you're just joshed on whatever, well, that may be true, but the boss just clowns your hair, So like that stuff, there's a multiple that's applied to your words when you're in a position of leadership, and you got to be real careful of that. So joking with them in a way that's kind of, clowning and whatever, I get it. I do that with family, I do it with friends. I learned to stop doing it with employees because it wasn't serving them. What they need from me is encouragement, right? They need that. Picking on them, whatever. Trust me, I did it especially when I was a young leader, that's just, I like to joke and have fun and all that stuff, but I learned and matured in the fact that, that doesn't serve them, the intentions just aren't received properly. And like say, there's a multiple on your words that, bring some damage, I would say.
So what was your preference to promote from within or hire from outside?
Yeah, my preference in a cycle like that, and I see it talking in the chat. You want to be in a position where you can bring junior techs into established processes so they can learn and grow, because you want them to learn and grow into that their tier 2 tech, that field technician or a project technician, to be able to go in the field and all that stuff. So having those processes, to bring in those junior guys and promote them up. Another key thing though, if your growth may be outpacing the talent that you can bring in or promote from within or whatever. So maybe you'll find yourself in a position where you need to replace an upper tier person or whatever. And again, this is where your processes are going to come in, because that way you can sit in with that new person and say, hey, this is how we do business, because the one thing I didn't like when I didn't have processes to hold folks accountable is everyone's got their favorite way, right? Like, I'm a Dell guy. I'm a HP guy. Well, why are you guys doing Sonic? Well, Juniper's better. All this. When you bring in more seasoned technicians, they're going to have their favorites, right? To me, it's irrelevant. It's all networking. And systems. Fun. Yes, you can have your preferences, but it's important for the business to have a standard, right? You don't want to be everything to everyone. Your business operation needs to have its standards that it maintains. So you want to find technicians that either align with that standard, agree with your standard, but you don't want to bring in the technicians who know it all and your way was never right, and you should be doing it the way they did it at their old job. Like, hey man, if your old job was so great, what'd you come start working here for? Right. Like, so, and that's just a comfort zone. Like people, and that's basic human nature, right? Folks are trying to stay in their comfort zone. So when they were in a Dell shop and now you bring them in an HP shop, of course, there's going to be a little that. And I think those are things that you want to do during the interview process and flush out. I think, one of the things I've done wrong more times I like to admit is like hire hastefully, right? Just hurry up and get him in here. I don't care. He's a warm body. That's always a mistake. You need to hold out, find the right people, and bring them in because that's what you get. You get those things that you realize is just a bad fit in your culture. So identifying your culture and measuring your new hires against it, and things like that. So making hasty hires is tough.
Isn't the rule of thumb quick to fire, slow to hire?
Yeah. We don't do it often. I mean, it's an easy rule to break when you're kind of, I think pre-COVID, one of the things that was really tough because the unemployment was super low, right? Like, so it was hard to find good people. So having that good system to grow your folks is a positive one. But at the same time, I would caution that, when you brought in junior techs that had no experience, but you had sound processes that you could bring junior techs into, entry level folks, after they've been there for 6 months, their value just shot up and now they're not junior anymore and other people will hire them. So when you bring folks in, I think it's a good idea to have a 2-year roadmap for them identified for that position, because in that time, especially, and I imagine we'll get back there if we're not there close to getting there already with the job market turning back on, is there's always another opportunity. And if you haven't shown your people what the next 2 years looks like at your company, if they don't know, if they truly don't know, they don't have clarity there, well, some other operation might show them by way of a $5,000 pay increase, $10,000 pay increase, whatever, right? They'll jump to that other opportunity just for increased salary if they don't know when they'll get their next salary with you, or when they'll be promoted, or when they'll be considered for promotion. So I think it's important to mention when you bring people in, especially if it's junior techs or anyone really, that you kind of have an idea of what that position looks like over the next few years to paint that picture for them.
So we've talked about systems and processes, and Shiva does have a question here about that. How and where are you keeping your processes? Is there a platform for the repo?
What's the one? I never got too much into it. What's the main? It's not
IT Glue.
IT Glow, yeah. So that's a good one just from its various integrations, but it's a lot of work. I think it's a great platform. Before we got introduced to IT Glue, I was a fan of doing everything in SharePoint in the form of wikis because it's easily updated, very easily manageable. Certainly, it doesn't have those integrations, which is automatically porting some of the stuff in from the RMM and other things like IT Glue did. But from a sake of documentation, you can do a lot in SharePoint to make things more accessible and easy. And you can, as you really grow and scale, you can put in approval. So you can automate kind of getting documents updated, getting your documentation updated with various approvals and getting comments from folks. So where it might maybe more, a lot of your tactical stuff, like within your help desk and knock or whatever, might be in wikis, and that's oversaw by the respective managers. Maybe more of your business policies are in Word docs that get published as PDFs or whatever, but in the back end, the leadership team is commenting and approving changes and things like that without having to sit down in a 2-hour meeting about it. You could be doing it remotely through an approval process through SharePoint. That's my preference. I mean, look, again, having a process and commitment to documentation, it doesn't always matter where you're putting it. It just matters really what your system looks like and what's going to serve you. I mean, what are you solving for, right? Don't run out and buy IT glue because IT glue exists. What's the problem you're trying to solve for, right? And that's where you really got to start, or else you're going to, IT glue takes a ton to set up. And if it's going to solve a major problem that you know is a real problem, yes, go make that time investment, that financial investment to get it done. But don't just run out and buy IT glue just because it exists, and create that project for you. That could have maybe been solved another way.
I agree completely. I've found that as long as you have processes in place, it doesn't matter if you're storing things in OneDrive, maybe not passwords, but like the rest of the documentation, just so that way you kind of know where everything is. And then, for if you're gonna make like a template with a bunch of tables on it, in the password field, just put it's in LastPass or whatever you use, right? Like the tools don't matter as much as you doing the thing. As long as your people can access it, it doesn't matter if you're just making a 1,000 Word documents.
Yeah, it does. I mean, again, it's you've got things to consider, efficiencies and all that stuff. But again, I just preach, start with the question, what are we solving for? What is the problem we're solving for? If you start there, that'll paint the picture of where you need to go.
So that was just, I would think a degree of immutability and not having multiple versions floating around is a necessity. Absolutely. When picking your solution or figuring out how you're going to store documents or whatever, like, yes, make sure that you're doing things in a way that you're not duplicating files and keeping multiple versions of the same thing, or letting techs put a copy on their computer that they just use that one and never see the changes that get made or whatever, right? Like you have to put some serious thought and effort into all the little pieces about that. But
what I liked about SharePoint, just in its simplicity, one, you're already in it, right? Most everyone's already in 365, so you don't need to create another system of passwords and things like that if there's not a way to integrate the single sign-on stuff. But SharePoint does that natively, right? For all things, right? It keeps a version history of those documents, and that's again my original preference before you got into these crazy document management systems that are available today. Why I started with SharePoint and wikis is because that's not easily downloadable like a document is. So the tactical stuff, again, especially like new system setup checklists and things like that, I would always source that stuff in wikis and things like that were more online rather than in a document. And that was a part of making sure everyone knew, like, get the, where to source your information from, so you weren't acting on old info.
And I think, we could sit here and talk just about documentation for hours, I'm certain. I think the most important thing is the way you do everything in your business, including documentation, is going to be different at the different stages you are in the business. When it's just you, it doesn't matter if you're writing things down in Notepad, right? If you've got just a few employees, OneNote might be fine.
Yep.
And then at some point you're going to have to be able to control access and make sure people can't just like download a copy, quit, and then go after all of your clients. Or obviously there's a lot of things to think about with every single thing that we're doing as business owners. and obviously, one of the most important things we should always be thinking about is mitigating risk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, systems and processes. We talked about people. We even talked about some leadership stuff. Let's talk about automation. So, once you've got your systems, your processes, you now need to automate as much of that as you can. So, you didn't even have employees. You just had like 100 instances of ConnectWise and LabTech, and it was all just doing everything for you, right?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know why I ever retired. It was that easy.
So what did it look like for you guys when you started to automate your processes?
Yeah, the thing about automation is you got to have the talent and the time to do it. So similarly to the point about getting someone to document the processes, right? Often, if you're counting on your help desk techs or your busy best project engineers to write this automation, it's probably never going to happen because the client needs are always going to win, right? So I think establishing a plan of resources that are what are we automating? What are we solving for? But two, who's going to do it, right? And when are they going to do it? And getting serious about that, because I think that's one of those things where, the cobbler's kids never get the shoes, where, you never automate it because you never have the time. And that's because you never sat down and got a serious plan of what resources, you were going to do that. And the best way to do that is take it small, like take it one. You're not going to get them all done at once, but what's the most impactful, achievable one, and weight them in that regard, right? So what things can we automate? What problems do we have that we can automate, and which one will bring the most impact to our efficiency the minute it's done, and focus on that and get it as its own project and get it done. So, and that may be, right, that's various things, and whether it's in your PSA or different trigger rules and things like that you're going to put in the RMM. But I think the places that you start may be where you've got high volume coming in. I think the alerting systems, obviously, if you've got whatever a consistent trigger, and you're getting 100 events and you're still manually having to do something for this routine 100 events that are coming in. That's a big win, right? You're going to knock out 100 tickets a week by writing a script that auto restarts whatever service or whatever when this triggers, whatever your knock techs or whatever have been doing when this is happening. That's the problem you're solving for, right? What automated tickets are we getting, and how can we automate against them the resolutions for them so we can shrink that. That's where I've always found the most value.
So I just want to make sure we're clear that for you, maybe a way to automate password resets might have been the most impactful thing, because maybe it was because your company is like so big, and now the most tickets you're getting are not RMM alerts. Maybe it's just everyone forgot their password.
Sure.
Whatever, right? And for me, maybe it's I've got a client who everyone hates the boss because he's an a-hole, so they have a lot of turnover. So I'm constantly having to set up new users and re-image machines, and maybe it's going to save me a lot of time every month if I find a way to press a button in my RMM tool and have it just do all of that.
Yeah. And look, what is automation, right? It's not having to manually execute these things. So yeah, you nailed it, right? So making it so you get a new client and you get in, you realize that their 365 isn't set up for, user self-service on passwords, right? That should be a part of your SOP, right? So that being a part of your onboarding process, you're automating away, right? You didn't write a script, but you did automate away a problem that previous provider had, right? That user base is always calling, I can't get into 365. I locked myself out. I forgot my password, right? But if part of your SOP, your onboarding was to make sure that self-service password reset and two-factor MFA were implemented as a part of your standard. Well, you just solved two major problems that we're up against today as a help desk, which is, password resets and getting your account spoofed because you gave your password up to that, to Microsoft, who emailed you and said that you got to log in and fix your password, right? I mean, how many times does that happen? But that's just a checkbox, right? But if you standardize on these things, that too is another form of automation. So I would say, like, hey, I get it, right? We can write PowerShell scripts and all that stuff all day long, or you can enable workflows in various systems. Those are automations, but there's also having a sound standard that also prevents this ticket creep as well, that you could be thinking about and making them part of your core processes, to keep this noise out as well.
So since we're talking about automation, I know a guy who is constantly evaluating tools, and it's not me. He's constantly evaluating tools. He might like get, a couple months ago, Rocket Cyber, and then they got bought out by Kaseya, so now he's removing Rocket Cyber, and now he's got this new thing, and then, oh look, shiny new object over there. But at the same time, he's doing 1 point something million a year. So what would you say to that CEO who constantly is evaluating all of these tools, and then maybe even just almost, it feels like blindly implementing them to clients before really thinking about this type of stuff?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my motto. Well, I'm going to go to one of your things. We talked about being busy versus being productive, right? So what are you running from, keeping yourself busy with these things? Is there something that we're avoiding and we're keeping ourselves busy with other things, rather than be productive? But aside from that, what are we solving for? Why are we changing the PSA again? Why are we changing RMM again? Like, what's the problem, right? If there's problems, let's talk about them and rate them as far as impact. And is changing the RMM or PSA, whichever, is that the solution, right? Or is there automation? Like, we have a problem with X in there, okay? Because this is what I know about swapping systems. It doesn't matter what the tools are. It matters what your processes are, right? We've hit on that. Sometimes you trade the bad for bads in the other one, right? You might have a PSA that does 8 out of 10 things great, and the other PSA might do those other 2 things great, but it does 4 other things bad that the first one did great. So you could switch over to, you got to be, you got to see the forest for the trees here a little bit here. You can't just chase those shiny objects. You're just going to chase your tail. You're never going to get productive things done. So I would say to that CEO, hey, if you want to, grow beyond this $2 million mark, well, let's start norming and performing rather than reinventing the wheel every 6 months to a year with a new PSA and hitting the reset button and starting over. Now we got to have new processes, and we got to get the team acclimated, and we've got to migrate all the data over. Geez, like that would drive me bananas.
It would drive me, but it drives me bananas just hearing about it.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what the team feels like. So
it's a lot of needless stress, like I said, unless there's a why, there on what are we solving for.
And I understand why this person does it, because they are very focused on security, and they just are trying to figure out the best way to provide the best security. So I get it. It's not like they're changing out RMMs or PSAs. They're swapping out security platforms once they realize there's something out there that does a better job. And I don't think there's something wrong with that per se, but maybe don't be so quick to adopt new technology might be my response to that. And similarly, sometimes, like, let's just take Augment. I have not actually used Augment. Shameless plug. Wednesday next week, I'm meeting with Derek Belair from Augment, and we're gonna do a little thing on Augment. So come watch that next week. So I haven't used it. I don't know what it can and can't do, but let's just pretend it basically helps you do all the administration on all of your client Office 365s whenever you need to, all at once maybe. So you don't know if you need Augment unless you can weigh the cost of purchasing Augment versus the cost of what you are paying your employees, your staff, to go and do this stuff normally.
Yeah.
And then you have to figure out how much time is it going to save me by switching to Augment.
Right. And that's an automation question, right? Like, hey, right now the team we're having to manage all these accesses to our clients, 365 administration portals, right? So there's a security concern there. I equate this conversation. That's why earlier I mentioned as an evolution, because it is the equivalent of where I was when I was using enterprise tools disintegrated, to manage AV and alerting and all these different disjoint systems. So I was hopping in all of them, and then the RMM came and brought all that together. Something like this conversation around something like a product like Augment, right? That's what that would solve for, right? So instead of having to maintain all these different accesses to these different cloud platforms and having to manually do these administration in these cloud platforms, now there's a tool that can consolidate all that into a single pane of glass, which now makes us more efficient. So you're right. You've got a cost benefit analysis that, hey, yeah, there's an inefficiency here, and we need to weigh that against other problems, right? Again, let's prioritize our problems here. But if that's a problem or there's an opportunity to get some gains, that's what a tool like that would be for, right? And so I think, but yeah, what are you solving for? So you've got to be capable of understanding, the problem at hand, and is that a problem, right? All of our clients are on 365. How are we managing that, right? Well, this is where we keep all the passwords, and this is what, and you know what I mean? It's just, so yeah, I think it's something to consider.
And on the flip side, if you're just one guy, you're still growing this thing, it's still a baby company, you don't need, I mean, you want, but you don't need this Microsoft 365 management platform, because the only thing you're doing is taking money out of your pocket. The more toys you buy, the less you can pay yourself and the less that you can put back into the business. So that's the other thing, is you need to be really careful when it comes to your money, because it, sure, okay, great, you can write it off. But when I read this book here, sorry about the shakiness. This book here, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits. I'm just going to simplify this very much. The less you pay in taxes, the less money you're making.
Yep.
So if you're able to write off so much that you're getting a refund, or you owe nothing, I think you need to reevaluate why you're running a business, because especially if it's been like years and years and years that it's like this, maybe it's time to start doing something different, because it sounds like it would be the definition of insanity.
Yeah, but at the same time, the other perspective on this is, when you're bringing more value as an MSP by having that tool in your arsenal, right? That you should be charging more, right? So you shouldn't just be burdening these costs of these tools. If you're increasing your value proposition as a provider, you should be increasing your cost, right? You should be promoting those things. You should be subsidizing your expense. You shouldn't just be pulling these additional expenses in, without getting compensated for it. Now again, you may be compensated for saving on the opportunity cost of your inefficiencies, right? You may be saving there. That may be where your gain is. But certainly if you're bringing in a tool that's bringing in value to your clients, right? Like, so what MSPs are out there, that are just bringing in, cyber tools, and not charging for them, they're saying, hey, I just added a EDR system. Don't worry about it. We're going to eat the cost. We're not doing that, right? We're going back to the clients and going, hey, I have this product. It's an add-on, right? And this is the benefit that it's going to bring you, and you will be able to figure out where your licensing is and where you're bleeding, and licensings that are unused, or understand where your users are in these systems, blah, 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 whatever. Right? There's a value proposition for the clients too, that you can go upcharge for these things and so on. I mean, I can tell you, SaaS management's a problem, so it's not just a problem for MSPs, but it's a problem for our clients. And if we're solving that problem, it's well within our right, and the clients will gladly pay for it.
You said something, I had a response, and I completely lost it. And it wasn't a joke response.
How's your cat, by the way?
She stopped.
She's still breathing?
And she may still be breathing. She's sunning in the window.
Yeah,
she's fine.
Yeah.
I think she's breathing. Oh, boy. So you said... Gosh. I lost it, man. Oh, how frustrating. So we're talking about the automation and the technology that we're investing in. And you mentioned a thing, and I was going to say a thing. So we'll pretend that happened, and it was very insightful, and everyone loved it.
Good job.
So, yeah, so the last couple of things that I think are important to talk about when it comes to scale is focus and vision. Which one comes first?
Vision. If you don't have vision on where if you can't see your target, you don't know what to aim at, right? So you've got to establish the vision that you're striving for, and then you bring in focus. And I would say no more than 90-day out projects to take you towards that, right? There's a great analogy I like to talk about. It's like, say there's $1 million, you're on one island, and across the bay there's $1 million island, and you've got to build a means to get there. You've got the resources. Well, you don't want to start building a bridge and then you stop, and then you start building a different bridge, and then you stop, and you build a different bridge, and you stop. You never get to $1 million island, right? You got to get focused on building one bridge and take you to that other side. And the same goes with, your projects and being productive, right? You've got to prioritize 1 to 3 projects at a time, as far as growing your business and what you're focused on and improving it. Like you don't need to do everything at once. Some of these projects will still be there later, and focus on the things that are bringing the most value, most impact that you can get done over the next 30, 60, 90 days, and then rinse and repeat. What are the next 3 projects that are bringing the most value over the next 30, 60, 90 days, and go from there. So vision and then focus.
So how do we come up with the vision? What is the right vision? You know what I mean?
What's the right vision?
Yeah.
Whatever you want. I mean,
no.
What's the right vision? Look, if you want help with that, great book, The Vivid Vision, short read. But listen, how do you come up with vision? You sit down and you just write out. Look, in clarity, I have 3 tenets with Lying's Guide, which is establish clarity, have courage, and lead. And this is where clarity comes in, is that you got to sit down. You've got to make time and sit down and write out how you would have things. How do you want to see things? What do you want to see? Okay, I'm a $1.7 million MSP that you mentioned earlier. What do I want to be? What do I want? Is that good enough? I'm 1.7, but I'm bringing home $400,000 a year. Do I want more? Well, what is more? Do I want why do I want more? Right. So you really got to sit down and challenge your thinking on what do you want? why, and then where are you at? And this is the way I'd like to tackle just even tech projects, which is, okay, where are we going? Where are we at? How are we going to get there? Right. And I think as far as establishing vision and look, I can't tell anyone what their vision is, but I can tell them you need to have time where you sit down and you have thought development time, and you do need to paint a picture of your vision. But it's got to start with what brings you joy in life? How do you get more of that? What doesn't bring you joy in life, and how do you reduce and eliminate that? And then you can bring some tangible metrics to that in comparing to where you are now. I don't make enough money now. Okay. What would be enough money? Well, the minute you have that answer, now you've got a target, right? Now you've got that target to aim at, and you start reverse engineering that, right? So once you and you got to think, no one's going to give you these answers, right? That they're yours. It's your vision. That's why I paused. I thought there's more to the question, right? Like I can't tell you what your vision is, but I can tell you it's only yours, and there's no wrong answer. And you can make it happen. You just put in the work. It's I know it sounds pie in the sky and whatever, but yes, you can have what you want, and you're going to work to get it. If you're willing to do that, you'll get there. And don't be afraid to make adjustments along the way, because each step you take, your vision gets more clear. So you're not going to get it right the first time. You're going to sit down and put all this stuff together. Yes, it's enough to get you directionally accurate to where you want to go. And then as you start progression, revisit it. I thought I wanted this, but now I want more. I thought I wanted this, but I actually didn't like that aspect, and I actually don't want that anymore. So, not to say you always got to have a moving target and have these wild swings, but starting with something gets you directionally accurate. And as you progress, right, it'll bring more clarity and refinement in that. So, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
I think so. So now I'm going to give you a softball question. Which one's better, Autotask or ConnectWise?
Look, I used Autotask from 2006 to 2020. Why? Because the pain wasn't worth the change. ConnectWise could have been better. I wasn't seeing what was better enough to go through the pain of migrating a 200 employee company and, tens of thousands of systems under management just to say we were on ConnectWise. What are we solving for? Because I know, like I said earlier, we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater in some aspects of what we're transitioning to. So, which is better? Your business is better. Focus on your business, and they're both great tools, but jumping back and forth and which is better. I don't have an answer for that anymore. Just pick a tool and build your business. And that PSA is a tool in your business. The PSA is not your business, right? So the more you build what your business is going to be, how you're going to serve your clients, you pick the tools that's going to serve that end, right? It may be Autotask because, originally for me, why I picked Autotask in 2006, by the way, is they were fully web-based, right? Well, I knew I had techs in the field. I wanted the mobile app. I did not want techs having to come back to the office to a client server-based application so I could get their notes in. I wanted a web-based one so they could tap into the client network and do stuff there. Ground zero, that's why I did it. Later, when I did diligence to say, hey, are we on the right platform? I found at the time, and I don't know where ConnectWise is today, and so go do your own due diligence, but at the time, I saw that still the real power and value of ConnectWise was in their client server application. Their web version was weak. Hey, we're sticking with Autotask. I'm not swinging to ConnectWise because it's a better tool on the client server than Autotask is web, because I need the web, right? I've got techs geographically dispersed now all over the country, so now I'm going to switch to a client server app. Sure, I could cloud host it, but now I'm adding even more expense, so there's a lot of dynamics to it. And again, that's why for me, my answer is always going to be back to what's your business need, and find, evaluate the tools against that.
What is the biggest thing you wish you knew when you started your company?
The biggest thing I wish I knew when I started the company, you know, a couple things. I think like client orientation. I'm trying to find my answer. I wrote on this before. Oh yeah, we've had. Sorry, this is the top of the questions make me think. I think recognizing that I own a business now, right? And a lot of guys. So we've talked about that a lot. I think that the importance of thing I wish I knew when I started. Certainly the value of MRR. And this should be table stakes today. But growing that MRR, that stickiness, I think hardware as a service is cloud services. Obviously, the more bundling you can do, the better. The more you can bring to your client, and kind of, again, for me, my background's enterprise IT management. So I had standards, right? I had a standard firewall. I had standard systems. It wasn't installing at one location, Fortinet, and this location, a Sonic wall, depending on who the branch manager, what they wanted, right? I had a standard. We had a standard. We had our enterprise standard. I think as a MSP, you should have a standard that answers to what your ideal client is, and bundle that stuff. And then take that bundle. Now you've got more MRR because you're more holistic. You're bringing a full package, and you as a result are more efficient. Because now you've got a standard that your team is trained against and operates against, and now your clients have a similar standard. And that's going to ebb and flow, right? Depending on your vertical, if you have one. I think specializing is an opportunity. A lot of my group, like starting today, if I wanted to really accelerate growth, I would pick a specialty and go after it, and I'd build a standard that solves the problems in that vertical. A lot of my growth was organic. It was me networking, finding problems, growing, and I think the first 10 plus, all the years of legacy Corsica before selling it. I had a wide diversity of different types of clients, and that was because my growth was organic. When people called, we want them. Call, we'll win. Call, we win. And if I were to go aggressive and start a new company, and if I wanted to get it to $5 million in the first 5 years, let's say, I would focus on a vertical that I know I could win at, and I would specialize there, and just go focus on that instead of trying to be able to paint a broad stroke across all markets. I would focus on a certain vertical.
So you have the advantage of being a former Marine. So that means it's very easy for you to stay focused. What would you say the top 3 things that you wasted time on would be?
So here, making hasty hires was definitely something that's a time suck. That mistake of just get me a warm body, to fill the spot or do whatever without, having that ideal hire in mind and having some standards around that. I think I certainly made some mistakes there, and that's always a 2-step forward, 2-step back, right? You lose the time of finding them, you hastily hire them, you tolerate them. You made a bad hire, and now you're starting over. So I think like you said it best, slow to hire, quick to fire is a good mindset. On both sides of that, correcting for the bad hires, the quick to fire side. I think trying to please everyone, I would say, there is that, right? You're trying to keep everyone happy. You got employees, you got clients, and all that. But I think you gotta, maybe to the example I said earlier, like sometimes you're going to have a client that's going to want you to do business the way that suits them. And again, you got to stay true to what is best for your business. And if they're not a good fit for that, they're just not a good fit client, and you're just going to have trouble. And say likewise with the conversation maybe we had about the employees, right? Like if you've got a set standard, you want to hire employees that fit in your standard, fit in your culture, fit in your operation. So trying to please everyone, keep everyone happy, you're best served if go own it, right? Go own your thing. Don't move and make all these adjustments just to try to keep other people happy. And don't worry about failing. I think, it's basic human nature to, have this fear of failure, but at the same time, man, you got to really go after it, man. Be bold. Don't be afraid to fail. Get out there and try new things, and learn and grow. It's not win or lose, it's win or learn. So, learn from the experience, go try the things that you want to try. Don't worry about failing. Don't worry about the judgment, go take ownership of your operation and take it where you want it.
And what would you say the top 3 traits were that made you a successful entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur wise, I think leadership, like I said, I came up in as a student of leadership since a private in the Marine Corps. So I hold that and I think, the strongest leadership trait is setting the example. So, if you want your people on time or technically proficient and all these things, like set an example for them to follow. You're not going to make it if it's the do as I say, not as I do mindset, right? Set the example for your people, be the best version of you that you can be. And that's where I'm at today with my coaching and advisory practice is, helping entrepreneurs, CEOs, whoever that are in these demanding roles, be the best version of them. And, that rising tide lifts all boats, right? So the better, you're performing, you're going to be an inspiration for those people around you. They're going to want to be better. So I think, and that's at its core of leadership. Being humble, I think is something else that it served me, that I don't think I know everything. I think, and that's okay, and that means I check my ego so I can go, okay, well, I don't know that, right? I don't know about that. Teach me, show me, where can I find the answers? I think there's this sometimes, a little bit too much ego in the room that no one wants to admit they don't know, and they posture and things like that. I don't know, tell me, what do I need to know? And then I go seek to know, and I trust in that and I verify, right? So if I'm getting answers to get a semblance of what I need to know, and then I'm going to take it further. I'm going to get my own information. That's back to seeking clarity, is finding the truth of the matter, getting educated. So, being humble to know that I only know what I know, even with, coaching and advising today. I mean, what worked for me might not work for everyone, right? I'm going to say that, right? I could be running around going, hey, here's the MSP formula for success. There's your formula, and does it work or does it not work? If it doesn't, what's not working? So let's find that solution, because what worked for me at Corsica at that time in that market with the people I had, right? So let's find out what works for you in your market, and so on. So being humble is I think key, and I think being patient as well is another thing. Be patient. You don't need to jump this, that, and the other. I think I guess another thing I see people do is they're always worried about what the competition's doing. Like, you'll chase your tail on that, man. People will see like, hey, this other MSP is doing this, so like, we don't know if that's working. We don't know why they're doing that. We don't know if it's serving. You know what I mean? Like, so I never look. What you focus on expands. So if you focus on competition, you know what you're going to find? You're going to find more competition, and you're going to be chasing the competition. If you get focused on your clients and what your clients' needs are, they'll be chasing you, right? So, I think that's something that I never got caught up in. Like, say, early on as a Microsoft Gold partner, even vendors, like, they push their agendas on you, right? Go with what your clients need, where you want to go. Don't be, pushed around, so to speak, by other agendas or what the competition's doing. Build your business.
We ran over, I just realized, because we're having such a great conversation. If you need to take a drink real quick while I talk, I totally understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can tell you're you've reached the end of the the coating in your throat, and it's just angry now. So I have one last question, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
sure.
With Lion's Guide, and it's like a multi-part question. That's how it's won.
All right.
Who is your target client for Lion's Guide?
Yeah, my clients are, like I said, people that are entrepreneurs or maybe in a demanding leadership role. So that might be a senior executive or a manager or just someone that's just got a lot of stuff they're up against. I've got clients that are business owners. I've got ones that are IT execs. Those are my one-on-one clients. I had other ones as well. But look, what I'm serving up is, leadership development, self-mastery, really through self-leadership. Again, if people say, what was your secret to success? I'd say I looked at my life as a whole, right? I didn't just go zero in only on Corsica. I zeroed in on my whole life, and Corsica was a major part of that. But I had to be able to perform at that level. So my focus is helping people be the next version of themselves, and they may already be in a very demanding role, or they may be striving to take themselves to the next level. So I work with them to take them there. I put out the lessons I've learned, and what's gotten me here, how I keep my sanity, how I have joy in life. That's what people ask me. Like, Dale, you run this company, you got 3 kids at home, you're running marathons, you do jujitsu, you run the local youth association. Like, how the hell you do it all? Still have this energy, still got a freaking smile on your face, and yes, there's ways to do that. And I go teach, coach, and advise on those things, the things I've learned.
So are your clients with Lion's Guide, are they all IT related?
No, I think that none. That's a lie. Yes, some, but there's diversity there. Like say, they're business owners, CEOs, managers, service business owners. So there's some diversity there because we all have those same problems. Like you could have this problem. Now you run a podcast and you could be like trying to keep up, right? Well, how do we narrow that in? How do we level you up? It's never going to get easier. New levels, new devils, man. It's people think like, oh, I'm going to build my business to $2 million and now it's going to be easy. I built my business way beyond that. And all it got was more challenging, right? It never got easier. So the only thing you can do is get better. And that's what I'm doing, right? I'm working with folks going, all right, hey, you're at the next level. You want to get to the next level. You've got to be better because it's not going to be easier, right? So I've got diversity there. In fact, even when I start with IT advisory clients, we actually go back to them because no matter what I can, impart my perspective and advice on their IT business, I got to get them up, right? I got to get them to where they can perform at this level and beyond before, we even can hope to get the most out of improving the IT operation.
So with what you're doing today, is this like a package? Everyone just buys the one package, it's all the same price, or is it all customized? Is it hourly?
No, I've got various offerings. So in coaching, I do one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I have a membership that people can go in and get weekly training lessons that I put out. I've got online courses people can check out. The best thing people can do right now and to keep up with everything, check out lionsguide.com. Find the various. I'm tapped into the various platforms. Best thing you do is sign up for the updates so you can keep in tune and see what I've got going on and what I'm releasing week to week. This week, and probably a little bit while my voice is going out, is I'm batching a podcast of my own, the Lion's Guide podcast, where we're diving into this stuff. Not necessarily IT, but beyond that, right? And it's applicable to everyone, especially IT. Look, why I relate to IT. IT is a demanding role, man. It's just a lot coming at you, especially as you grow and scale, right? More clients, more problems, right? So you've got to, again, rise to that. So, one of the things I think that's really helped me is focusing on my performance and always getting better. Always getting better. It never got easier. And once I realized like I had to get better, that's when things really changed for me, where I started to have a lot more joy in my life, where I wasn't just man, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? Man, it's not going to end. I got to get better. So lionsguide.com, you can subscribe there or look at the other, platforms I'm on all of them. Look for the podcast to come out in June. We've got a lot of recordings coming through. We've been batching a lot this week. So, but yeah, check it out. Like I say, coaching, online training, advisory, membership, all available.
Thanks so much for coming on here and doing this with me today, Dale. Really, I've learned a lot. I hope that all of the MSPs that are watching and listening have taken something away from this. The one thing that I think we just need to stress again is, sure, the tools that you use are important, but they don't define you. They don't define your company. And your processes and your culture and your vision. And these are the types of things that define you and your company. So the sooner you focus on that kind of stuff and stop worrying about Autotask versus ConnectWise or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
The sooner you are going to be able to build for scale.
Yes. Absolutely. Build your business. Otherwise, the tool's not going to make you. It's just going to become the next scapegoat, right? There's no one tool that's going to save you. It's you. You're going to save yourself, and you got to, find your way and put in the work to get there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks so much. Take care, Dale. Take care, everybody else. And I'll see you all at the next podcast episode.
Thanks, Steve.